Ever notice how some people just don't seem to respect you, no matter how kind, polite, or patient you are? Maybe they talk over you, ignore your boundaries, or constantly make you feel small. It's frustrating, but here's the truth. Respect isn't something you beg for. It's something you command through your behavior, your composure, and your boundaries. Today, we're talking about 7 ways to handle people who don't respect you. Not by yelling, not by fighting back, but by taking back your power with calm confidence. When someone disrespects you, your first instinct might be to react, to defend yourself, to explain, or to match their tone. But here's the thing, silence often speaks louder than any reaction ever could. When you choose not to respond emotionally, you're communicating that their behavior isn't worthy of your energy. You're showing control, not weakness, because silence isn't about ignoring the problem. It's about refusing to give it power over you. When someone disrespects you, they're usually looking for a reaction, something to feed off of, to confirm that they can get under your skin. The moment you stay still, calm, and unbothered, you take that power back. You're no longer playing their game, you're rewriting the rules. Silence shows strength because it reflects discipline. And discipline is what people respect, even if they don't admit it. Think about it. When someone's trying to provoke you, and you just look at them with composure, not anger, they don't know what to do next. They expect you to fight back, to argue, to validate their disrespect with attention. But when you don't, it unsettles them. It creates discomfort because your silence forces them to face their own behavior without your emotional reaction to justify it. In that moment, you're holding up a mirror to their immaturity, and that's powerful. It's not about winning an argument, it's about protecting your peace. Your silence is your boundary saying, you don't get access to my emotions. That calm silence has more impact than shouting ever will, because it shifts the balance of control from them to you. You decide when and how to engage, and that's what maturity looks like. Now, silence doesn't mean you suppress your feelings or avoid addressing disrespect altogether. It means you respond strategically, not impulsively. You might choose silence in the moment, let emotions cool, and then later communicate your boundaries clearly when the heat is gone. That's what emotionally intelligent people do. They don't let disrespect dictate their behavior. They lead with composure. If you're always reacting, you're being controlled. But when you pause, when you stay silent long enough to think, you respond with intention instead of emotion. That silence creates space for clarity. You can decide whether the situation even deserves your attention. Most times, it doesn't. Because not everyone who disrespects you deserves an explanation. Some people only understand distance, and silence is how you create it. It's important to understand that silence is not weakness. Weakness is letting someone's disrespect turn you into something you're not. Strength is keeping your values even when provoked. You can be silent and still be strong, silent and still be assertive, silent and still be confident. Because silence, when chosen intentionally, communicates certainty. It tells people, I don't need to prove myself to you. And that's one of the most intimidating forms of confidence. When you stop chasing validation and start choosing peace, people notice. Even the ones who disrespect you begin to sense that their words can't shake your foundation. Silence becomes your armor, light, invisible, but impenetrable. The truth is, not everyone deserves a reaction from you. Some people thrive on drama, on getting under your skin, on seeing you lose composure. The best way to show them that their tactics don't work is to stay calm, stay quiet, and stay collected. When you're silent, you're not surrendering. You're asserting control. You're saying, you can talk, but I decide what enters my peace. And over time, people learn that disrespect won't get your attention, only respect will. That's how you train people to treat you differently, not by yelling or fighting, but by showing them that the moment they cross the line, they lose access to your reaction. Your silence teaches them boundaries better than words ever could. So the next time someone disrespects you, take a breath. Don't rush to fill the silence. Let it hang there. Let it make them uncomfortable. Let it remind them that you won't stoop to their level. Because silence, when used with intention, is not emptiness. It's power. It's the sound of self-respect echoing louder than any insult ever could. When you master silence, you master yourself. And once you've mastered yourself, no one can take your peace away, no matter how loudly they try to break it. Setting boundaries without apology is one of the most powerful ways to earn respect from people who try to walk over you. Boundaries aren't walls, they're doors with locks, and you control who gets a key. When you say no without explaining or apologizing, you communicate that your time, energy, and emotions are valuable. Too often, people who don't respect you expect you to bend, to accommodate, or to justify your limits. But the moment you start defending your boundaries, you're already giving them too much room to question them. You don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting your peace. When someone disrespects you, the firmest response isn't anger, it's clarity. A calm, confident statement like, "That doesn't work for me," says more than a long, emotional defense ever could. It's not about being rude, it's about being rooted in self-respect. Boundaries teach people how to treat you. Every time you allow someone to cross one, you train them that it's okay to keep doing it. The people who truly respect you will understand and adjust. The ones who don't will push harder. That's not a sign to lower your boundary. It's a sign to reinforce it. The moment you stop apologizing for your limits, people start realizing they can't control you. And this isn't about being harsh or distant. It's about communicating with calm authority. You don't have to raise your voice or justify your needs. You simply have to be consistent. When your boundaries stay steady, people either rise to meet them or fall away. Both outcomes protect your peace. You cannot expect others to respect a boundary you constantly bend for their comfort. Boundaries are not a form of rejection, they're an act of self-respect. You see, most people struggle with setting boundaries because they fear losing relationships or being labeled as selfish. But here's the truth. If someone leaves because you set a boundary, they weren't respecting you to begin with. People who value you won't feel threatened by your limits. They'll feel safe around them. Boundaries make your relationships healthier because they create clarity. They remove the confusion about what's acceptable and what's not. They're not about control. They're about mutual respect. When you clearly define what you tolerate and what you don't, you filter out those who only stick around when it benefits them. You're not pushing people away. You're protecting the space where genuine connection can grow. Boundaries separate what drains you from what sustains you, and that's how emotional peace is maintained. The most respectful boundaries are communicated with calm, steady confidence. You don't need to over-explain, apologize, or defend your choices. The more you talk, the more room you give people to argue. A boundary doesn't need permission to exist. It just needs consistency to stand. You can say, "I'm not available for that," or "Please don't speak to me that way," and leave it at that. No debate, no guilt, no extra explanation. And when people try to test you, because they will, your response should be your consistency. The moment you give in, they learn that your boundaries are negotiable. But when you stand firm without hostility, you earn silent respect. They may not like your boundary, but they'll understand they have to deal with it. You teach people how to treat you not through your words, but through what you consistently allow. When you start setting unapologetic boundaries, you'll notice something shift inside you, a sense of peace that comes from taking control of your space. You'll stop over-explaining yourself. You'll stop tolerating behavior that used to drain you. You'll realize that your peace is not negotiable. And yes, some people will get uncomfortable. Some might even call you cold or difficult. But that's okay, because those are often the people who benefited from your lack of boundaries in the first place. Remember, when you set limits, you're not being cruel. You're being clear. Clarity isn't disrespect, it's maturity. The right people will respect it. The wrong ones will reveal themselves. Both are good outcomes because they keep your life aligned with peace and self-worth. So never feel guilty for protecting your space, your time, or your mental health. You don't need to apologize for saying no, and you don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing peace. Every time you set a boundary, you're sending a message to yourself. I respect me. And that's where true confidence begins. Boundaries are not about controlling others. They're about controlling how you respond to others. Once you learn to stand by them calmly and consistently, people around you start realizing something powerful. They can't disrespect what you refuse to tolerate, and that quiet self-assurance is what earns lasting respect without ever needing to raise your voice. When someone disrespects you, your instinct might be to mirror their attitude, to raise your voice if they shout, to get cold if they're dismissive, or to match their sarcasm with your own. But that's exactly what they want. The moment you match their energy, you've handed them control over your emotions. You've allowed their behavior to dictate yours. The real strength lies in staying grounded, composed, and emotionally steady when someone tries to pull you into chaos. Because when you don't match their energy, you communicate one clear message: you don't control me. That calm presence, that steady tone, that composed body language, it disarms people. It makes them realize that their emotional storm doesn't move you. And that kind of control doesn't just earn respect, it commands it. Because composure in conflict isn't weakness, it's mastery. Every time you react to someone's disrespect with the same energy they give, you become part of the problem. It's like two people wrestling in the mud. It doesn't matter who wins, you both get dirty. The person who stays calm, who keeps their cool, always walks away cleaner, lighter, and stronger. When you keep your composure, you protect your dignity. You teach others that your peace isn't up for grabs just because they're angry or insecure. You can disagree without being disrespectful. You can defend yourself without being defensive, and you can respond without reacting. That's emotional intelligence in action, responding from clarity instead of impulse. Because sometimes the loudest person in the room isn't the strongest. It's the calm one who refuses to be dragged down to their level. Not matching someone's negative energy also means understanding that their disrespect says more about them than it does about you. When people lash out, interrupt, or belittle you, it's rarely about you. It's about their own frustration, insecurity, or lack of emotional control. So instead of reacting, observe. Watch how their behavior reflects their inner world, not yours. This shift in perspective gives you power because it allows you to detach emotionally. You stop taking things personally. You realize that how someone treats you is a reflection of who they are, and how you respond is a reflection of who you are. You can't control their tone, their attitude, or their respect, but you can always control how much access you give them to your emotional energy. That's where your real power lies. When you stay calm, people don't know how to handle it. They expect a fight, a reaction, a back and forth argument, but your composure throws them off balance because they can't feed on your reaction anymore. Silence, a deep breath, or a simple, "I'm not going to engage with that," is far more powerful than any insult you could throw back. You're showing that your emotional thermostat isn't controlled by their behavior. And this doesn't mean you let people walk all over you. It means you respond strategically, not impulsively. You can calmly state your boundary, express your point, and walk away without losing your cool. People will remember your calm far longer than they'll remember the argument, because calmness under disrespect is rare, and what's rare is respected. Over time, when you consistently refuse to match negative energy, people start to treat you differently. They realize they can't provoke you, they can't manipulate you emotionally, and they can't control your reactions. You become the steady force in every situation, and that's powerful. People begin to mirror your calm instead of you mirroring their chaos. You set the emotional tone by how you carry yourself. The more you stay composed, the more influence you have, not by domination, but by presence. You'll notice that arguments end faster, disrespect loses its sting, and you walk away with your peace intact every single time. Because when you control your response, you control the outcome. So the next time someone disrespects you, don't meet them where they are. Make them rise to where you are. Keep your tone steady, your body relaxed, your mind clear. Let your calm be the loudest thing in the room, because matching energy might feel good for a moment, but mastering your energy will serve you for a lifetime. People might forget what you said, but they'll never forget how unshakable you were when they tried to break your composure. That's how you earn real respect, not by shouting louder, but by standing taller. Assertive communication is one of the most powerful tools you can use when dealing with people who don't respect you. It's the balance between standing up for yourself and staying calm, between kindness and firmness. Assertiveness doesn't mean being aggressive, loud, or confrontational. It means expressing your needs and boundaries clearly without fear or guilt. When someone disrespects you, it's easy to swing to either extreme. You either stay silent to avoid conflict or explode in frustration. Both of those reactions come from a place of insecurity, but assertiveness comes from confidence, the quiet kind that says, I know my value and I'm not afraid to protect it. When you speak assertively, your words carry weight, not because you shout, but because you mean what you say. You don't try to overpower the other person. You simply stand your ground with calm authority, and that earns far more respect than aggression ever could. When you communicate assertively, you focus on clarity, not emotion. Instead of saying, you always disrespect me, you say, when you interrupt me, it makes it hard for me to share my thoughts. That shift changes everything. You're not attacking their character, you're describing their behavior and its impact. It takes the heat out of the conversation and forces them to confront their actions without putting them on the defensive. Assertive communication is about ownership, owning your feelings, your reactions, and your standards. It's about saying what needs to be said without blaming, shaming, or pleading. And when you speak from that place of clarity, people start to realize they can't manipulate you emotionally. They can disagree with your words, but they can't argue with your composure. You show emotional maturity, and emotional maturity demands respect. Assertive communication also changes how you see yourself. Every time you express a boundary clearly, you're reminding yourself that your voice matters. You're building self-trust. Because the truth is, most people don't struggle with what to say. They struggle with giving themselves permission to say it. They worry about being seen as rude, difficult, or unkind. But being assertive isn't about being unkind. It's about being honest. You can say no with warmth. You can correct someone with grace. You can express disappointment without anger. The power of assertiveness is that it allows you to protect your peace while still respecting others. You stop shrinking yourself for the comfort of those who take advantage of your silence, and you start communicating in a way that says, I respect both of us enough to be direct. That's where real confidence lives, in the ability to be honest without hostility. People often mistake kindness for weakness and aggressiveness for strength, but both are wrong. Kindness without boundaries leads to resentment, and aggression without empathy leads to isolation. Assertiveness lives in the middle. It's controlled strength. When you use assertive communication, your tone stays steady, your words stay intentional, and your message stays focused. You're not trying to win an argument, you're trying to set a standard. You can say something as simple as, please don't raise your voice when speaking to me, and that alone changes the tone of the entire interaction. It tells the other person exactly what behavior you expect without adding drama. And the best part, you don't have to explain or justify it. Assertive communication is powerful because it doesn't rely on permission. It relies on self-respect. You're not asking to be treated better. You're declaring it through your presence and your words. When you communicate assertively, you also model maturity for others. People may not like what you say, but they'll remember how you said it. They'll remember that you stayed calm when they didn't. They'll remember that you didn't raise your voice, yet somehow your message still landed harder. That's because assertiveness commands attention without demanding it. It's not about volume, it's about intention. The more you practice it, the more natural it becomes, and soon you'll notice that your relationships begin to shift. People who used to test your limits will think twice because you've made it clear that disrespect doesn't get a reaction, it gets boundaries. And those who truly respect you will start mirroring that same level of calm communication. So, when someone disrespects you, don't fight fire with fire, and don't swallow your truth to keep the peace. Speak up calmly, clearly, and confidently. Use I statements. Be direct, not defensive. Look them in the eye and say what needs to be said with steady energy. You don't need to shout to be heard. You just need to believe that your words have value. Because when you master assertive communication, you stop chasing respect and start commanding it. People won't remember how loudly you spoke. They'll remember how clearly you stood. And that's how you gain not just their respect, but your own. Detaching from validation is one of the hardest yet most liberating things you can do when dealing with people who don't respect you. So many of us get caught in the trap of wanting to be understood, liked, or approved by everyone, especially those who treat us poorly. We think if we just try harder, explain better, or act nicer, maybe they'll see our worth. But here's the truth. You can't make someone respect you by seeking their approval. Respect isn't earned through people-pleasing, it's maintained through self-worth. When you stop chasing validation, you stop handing other people the remote control to your confidence. You begin to understand that your value doesn't decrease because someone else can't see it. Detachment isn't indifference, it's clarity. It means you recognize that how someone views you is not your problem to fix, it's their perception to carry. And when you learn to separate your self-worth from their opinion, their disrespect loses its power over you. People who don't respect you often thrive on control. They know your need for approval keeps you emotionally hooked. The moment you start detaching from that need, you remove their leverage. You stop reacting to every insult, every cold tone, every dismissive gesture. You no longer need their validation to feel good about yourself because you've learned to validate yourself internally. That's where your freedom begins. When you rely on external validation, your confidence fluctuates with other people's moods. But when your validation comes from within, no one can take it away. You move through life differently, quieter, calmer, more assured. You start realizing that not everyone deserves access to your emotions, and not everyone's opinion carries weight. The disrespect of others no longer feels personal because your sense of worth no longer depends on their recognition. You become your own anchor in situations that once made you feel small. Detaching from validation doesn't mean you stop caring about people or feedback. It means you stop depending on it for emotional stability. You can listen to someone's criticism without internalizing it. You can acknowledge someone's compliment without clinging to it. That's emotional balance, knowing that both praise and disrespect say more about the giver than they do about you. The moment you stop living for external validation, your boundaries strengthen automatically. You stop trying to convince people of your worth, and instead you start showing it through how you carry yourself. You walk differently. You speak differently. You stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. And the beauty of that is, when you no longer chase validation, you attract respect naturally, because people sense that your self-worth doesn't depend on them. There's an unmatched peace that comes with detachment. You no longer waste energy overanalyzing how others feel about you. You don't shrink when disrespected, and you don't inflate when praised. You stay balanced. That's what true confidence feels like.